This is Michael Malak, and this is the presentation I gave to the Denver HTML5 Meetup on Monday, October 22nd, regarding an alternative to PDF for transmitting and emailing reports involving XML, XSL, and HTML5 with JavaScript and the new Canvas tag in HTML5. Uh, it's applicable mostly to the scientific domain, but also applicable to other domains. I am involved in the niche scientific domain, a niche compared to the more popular business and web domains. And actually, I'm involved in a niche within a niche within a niche because I'm involved in the field of non-destructive testing, or NDT, and popular forms of NDT would be X-ray and ultrasound on an industrial part as opposed to on a person. But I'm not actually involved in those mainstream NDT fields. I'm involved in a niche of NDT called acoustic emission. And this photo is an example of that. That's a compressed gas cylinder made out of a composite material. These are microphones running along the top. And we pump that up to 110% and listen for the material to creep. So that provides some context for where this is coming from. What's the use case? Well, it's just emailing a scientific report, usually in a PDF format, and or it could be over the web or cloud or what have you. But then what happens? Well, 5 years later, there's a phone call. Hey, you know those nice charts in that PDF report? Can you give me the data behind those? And the answer on the other end could be, that I think was 2 laptops ago. So what's the solution? Well, real quick, since this is a 10-minute talk, it's an XML file. And within the XML file, there's XSL, and the XSL transforms the XML into HTML, the HTML containing CSS and JavaScript. So what does that look like? Well, we're just going to take a quick look here. And this is an XML file. I'm just going to double click on that. And because I have already associated in Windows the .xml extension to Firefox, it brings up Firefox when I double click on that XML file. Now this is a little different than making Firefox the default browser. This is an extra step that you would have to do. And as you can see, it's a full report here. For example, this stuff at the top, this metadata is not encoded, hard-coded into the HTML. This is actually being picked up by XSL tags from the XML body. And we'll see that in a minute. The point is that this report includes charts. And I have mouse interactions here with pan, zoom, and we have tooltips as well. This is all being done with HTML5 Canvas. So let's take a look at that, some of the code behind that XML. And you can see first and foremost, this is an XML file. And within the XML file, my root node is called doc. And underneath doc, I pretty much have two halves. And by the way, this embedding XSL in an XML file, yes, this is from, this was known in the year 2000, 2002. Pretty much the part here is HTML5 canvas tag. Doc is my root node. The first half of the document is XSL. And then down here, we have our XML. And the XML doc part, this is like, for example, this report criteria. This is a child off of doc. And I start off the XML with some metadata here. And then down here, we basically just have our data points. Now, just a little bit more, starting back up at the top. The XSL has HTML with some CSS and our JavaScript. This is a JavaScript that handles on the chart that you saw. And then just one little tricky thing that I wanted to show here, and that is how to bring the XML data into JavaScript memory space. And so I just declare a JavaScript variable inline here, instantiating my chart object, and that constructor takes some parameters. The name also takes the comma separated list of x values, and I generate that dynamically using the XSL for each tag and making it comma separated, kind of a JSON format. And I do that for the x values and again for the y values, and these are just the remaining parameters of my constructor. Well, this, like with anything, this technique has some pros and cons. Right now, it only works with JavaScript. It used to work with more browsers, but the browsers one by one have been restricting the ability to embed XSL and XML for security reasons, and right now Firefox is the only one that does it. And along with that, not everybody has Firefox installed. Probably they don't have the Firefox browser set up as their default XML viewer either. So it's kind of for a dedicated audience, or that it works best with a dedicated audience. The pros, basically these three things are all in one file. That's, in a nutshell, is the pro. The data, how to present the data, and how the user can interact with that data. So with those all being in one file, you never have to worry about the data being separated from the presentation. That solves the use case problem that I started out with. The viewing software is never separated from the data. This is actually a big problem in the scientific world where software can have these 20-year-old dongles that don't work with modern computers anymore. Also addressing that initial use case, you never have to worry about uh, getting the data behind charts. It's right there in the XML file. And of course, the age-old advantage of all XML files is that it's human readable. You never have to worry about decoding an obscure binary format. So that's the concrete of this format. Now, just to abstract a bit and get into some philosophy, Douglas Hofstadter is a Hofstadter is a artificial intelligence researcher, and he won this Pulitzer Prize for his book Gödel, Escher, Bach. And you can see it was written in a Star Wars font, so it's a good guess that it was written in the late 1970s. And so, in keeping with the 70s theme, I'm not going to update his metaphor. He makes the sharp distinction between information bearer and information revealer. You need a revealer to reveal information on the information bearer. But then he goes on and says, well, they're not always so distinct. If you look at the example of the first cell, uh, fertilized cell of an animal or human, that can be considered a program or data actually that reveals itself. It doesn't really need a player other than the proper environment. And so it raises the question, why did we ever separate program from data in the first place? And the answer is that 20 years ago, we had big program and small data. Now we have small program and big data. And in this field of scientific inspection, where one can be required to retain data for several decades, maybe 50 years, the life of a vessel, of a compressed gas vessel, it could be considered irresponsible to ever separate your information revealer from your data. And so that's it. You're probably already seeing this on my personal blog, technicaltidbit.com. And this time frame, October 2012, a friend of mine asked me to plug another meetup, the Data Science and Business Analytics in Denver meetup, where we're dividing ourselves up into teams, and we've been given access to some free resources, cloud resources, as well as access to software licenses for some six-figure business analytics software. So if you want to be a part of the team, you can go to this meetup, Data Science Business Analytics, and that's it. Thank you.